Okay, so you can see that I've applied lots of different materials. Here's some examples of them here onto my surface. The key ones, just to point out again for you, is I've made the flash emissive material, so it is shiny and it looks like it's lit up. I've also put a knurled finish onto the dial on top of the button, on top of the camera. I've got lots of chrome edges, so I've made all the edges shiny metal chrome. They'll look great once they're done. And I've also went in and selected a white leather surface for this inside bit in here. So I'm going to close this menu here, and I'm going to go over to this setting called Setup. And I'm going to click this icon, which is the scene setting. And I want to make sure that I've got nice lights, shadows, and environment for my camera to make it look as good as possible. In this menu over here, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that it has got an environment. So I'm going to select Environment Library, and you can select any one of these, but don't select something like the scenes that you see here. You wouldn't see a camera sitting out on a road or in a field. You would see it sitting in a studio, usually with a white background to it. So these things here are just different scenes with different types of light. I quite like the soft light one, that's a good one. But also, I think I might do the sharp highlight one in this because it creates a lot of good highlights for you. So I'm going to select sharp highlights. I'm going to go back to settings. And now that I've selected my scene, I've got a lot of different options here that I'm going to select. Firstly, I want to make sure the camera's sitting on the ground. So I'm going to click that button, and that means it's now sitting flat on the ground. Make sure I change that, from solid colour to environment. It is on the ground. I've selected my environment. I'm not going to mess about with this brightness too much. I'm just going to leave that. It'll probably be bright enough just now. The camera is going to stay in perspective, but the focal length, if I just zoom out here so we can see what we're looking at, the focal length is how wide or narrow the camera is. So if I change here, you see the camera looks much straighter if I have that focal length on it, and if I make it much smaller, you can see the camera becomes much more skewed in perspective. This can look quite cool if you like that look, and the camera looks very dynamic like that. A good focal length for us though is round about 90. I'll just zoom out so you can see. But it is completely up to you what you want to set the focal length as. The exposure I leave at 9.5, 9.5. This is good. Depth of field, tick this. Press OK if that appears. And what depth of field is it makes the front of the camera look in focus and the back of the camera look out of focus. There's a green little dot's appeared, so that is saying that this will be the bit that's in focus. I'm going to move that dot to about there. You could move it to this corner here or on the flash, but I'm going to go for about there. We don't want the back to look really blurry though, so take this slider all the way down to almost 0. I'm going to have it at 0.01 approximately. That's plenty of blur on it, and you'll see when you create your render what that effect gives you. The aspect ratio is usually best to go for 4:3, which is a nice presentation size. You can change this again if you want. It means the size of your finished picture will look in these proportions. There's a widescreen one, for example. Completely up to you. Square one. I usually go for 4:3. And then we want to save these settings as our defaults. That means every time you open it up, you won't have to go through that stuff again. So now that we've set up our environment and our camera, we want to create a render. Before you create your render, let's just make this smaller and close here. we want to make sure that our camera is in a good position. Quite often I see people creating renders in which it's very small on the screen, so this is not a good thing if you're too far away from it. Zoom in so that it is nice and close up, and pan so that it is in the middle of the screen. You can also orbit so that you can have a low down picture of your camera. This will create quite a dramatic look for your finished image. Lots of people kind of show above it like that. That would be nice so we can see the detail of this button. But make sure it's at a good angle so that we can see the best surfaces of the camera and we're not looking at it from a poor point of view. Also, another tip is some people like have it at a weird angle. Let me just put it in something like that. And it's hard to tell that it's straight or they've orientated their view and they're sort of like underneath or just not a normal view. So I would always advise that you press the home button first. That will get you into a good position. Zoom out or zoom in to get it full on the screen. And then I usually just try and pan it so that I'm looking at it a little bit lower down and that I can get a good shot of it like that. Okay, let's go for about there. I want to see that top surface in there so you can see the button detail. So once you've got it positioned nicely, we're ready to create our render, and to do that we want to just put our settings on full. So I'm going to press the grey teapot here, and we want to make sure that we've got high quality. So we're going to select cloud render, and rather than it being standard quality, we're going to select final quality. This is the size of it as it's coming out just now. But if you select print, you can select a larger size if you want to have a larger picture printed out. These are just the sizes that you are given here. So I'm going to just go for this one just now. It's for my printing. It says 2 credits required. Now, this is if you are not an education person, and you would have to actually spend money to get Fusion to render this for you, but we get it for free. When I press render, what's going to happen is it's going to get sent off to Fusion's servers, and it's going to not render on your machine, but it's now rendering in the cloud. Now, if you want to see where it's gone, let me just show you here so you can see. If I go to my rendering gallery, which is this thing which we minimized earlier on, this is where all your renders will appear, and this is the render that's currently being processed. Now, at this time of day, it might be, I'm recording this on a Saturday, I've got a less than 10-minute queue time because not many people are using Fusion worldwide. Once it's finished rendering, it will upload in here and I'll see the picture here and I can click it. You just got to be patient while it's rendering, but you can close it and you can create another render if you want. So I could move this and create it from this side here. I could maybe zoom right in and create quite a dramatic looking picture here with it quite low down. I can go to the grey teapot again. All the settings should be as they were, and I can select render again. And you'll see I will now get a second one in here. And you can set as many of these off as you want because this is completely free as we're using it for education. I recommend that you try a couple to start, and then once you see your final pictures, you might decide to change some settings. In particular, you might want to change your depth of field. You might decide to take that off. You might change your focal length of your camera, and you might think that you want to go and change the environment, maybe to a soft light or something else to see the effect that it gives you. So this process can take a little while you get used to it, but it's important that you try out lots of different options so that you can get a good render, a photorealistic looking render. As you can see here, I've got quite a photorealistic looking render. It's a bit blurry in the background, it's a bit sharper in the foreground, I've got shadows and I've got reflections, and it's sitting as if it's on a grey surface. Okay, so I've been waiting for a few minutes now, and you can see down the bottom that my render is complete because there's a little picture of it. So if I click that picture, I will see what the render is going to look like. And yeah, you can see it's looking pretty nice, quite interesting looking. This is very bright because this is the flash. Maybe it's a bit too bright. I've got lots of chrome reflections and highlights in my rounded surfaces here. The carbon fibre is looking maybe a little bit shiny and reflective. This is chrome surface in here. Why this has got loads of reflections in it. It's looking quite cool, and I've got some white and black surfaces to contrast that as well. If I close that, let's look at this one here. There we go. And yeah, that's not as shiny looking. This one, I've got a great shadow coming in over this side, the carbon fibre. The lens is looking super shiny, and it's quite nice. It's from a different perspective. This one, as if it's looking a little bit lower down on it. Now, finally, I want you to do this download button here and download it as either a PNG if you wish, or a JPEG. I'm going to click JPEG. And I'm going to make sure I select it and save it into my images folder, and let's just call this something nice and easy so you remember it. Let's go camera render and press save. Okay, and that's you finished with your rendering process. Make sure you save a few images, try out different lighting styles and different materials. Good luck.